Welcome, and thank you for joining us for this exciting new STEM learning series, AI Sprints, a dynamic, fast-paced exploration of artificial intelligence in education. We want today to be more than just a discussion. It's an opportunity to engage with cutting-edge AI applications, live demos, and thought-provoking conversations that will shape the future of learning. AI is transforming classrooms, opening new opportunities for innovation, creativity, and collaboration between educators, students, and their communities. With AI Sprints, we go beyond the traditional webinar or podcast format. This is an interactive, real-time experience designed to ignite ideas and spark meaningful dialogue. Together, we'll explore practical, innovative, and ethical strategies for integrating AI into education, ensuring it empowers both teachers and students. Throughout this series, you'll have the chance to witness live AI demonstrations that bring emerging technology to life, but also hear from expert guests leading the way in AI and education. Take part in engaging, real-time discussions to tackle AI's potential and challenges in the classroom, and gain insight and strategies that you can apply immediately to enhance teaching and learning. So whether you're a teacher, a school leader, or an advocate for the responsible use of AI in education, we really hope that this series will inspire, challenge, and equip you to navigate this rapidly evolving landscape. AI is already shaping the world around us and the way we learn. Our goal is to ensure it's done ethically, inclusively, and with real educational impact, so that young people and those supporting them can have agency in an AI-driven world. We're thrilled to have you here today for this journey into the future of AI in education. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. On behalf of STEM Learning, welcome to Season 1 of AI Sprints, a brand new, fast-paced, energetic session looking at artificial intelligence, something that the whole world's talking about in our classrooms, our schools, in our businesses. So I'm Alex, I'm your host, and in a minute I'm going to bring two amazing guests in to kick off the pilot episode, and this is our first run through, this is the pilot. So we're hoping everything's going to go really well, but there might be a couple of hitches. As we run the stream live, you can also interact and engage via the chat feed. We're going to be sharing loads of interactive polls, some links, some speaker bios, and some free demos. So hang around to the end, because our sponsors today, Brain Freeze, are going to be giving away a 90% off code onto their free AI. So stick around the end to get that, and you'll get to meet John very, very shortly. So what are AI Sprints? Well, they're not a podcast, they're not a webinar, they're a fast-paced, energetic conversation with live demos to try and bring this technology into your classroom in a meaningful and simplistic way. First of all, our first guest today that I'd love to introduce is Priya Lakhani, OBE. So Priya is the founder and CEO of SentryTech, which, if you don't know SentryTech, it's an online adaptive learning platform that children use all over the world. She's a former barrister turned entrepreneur in 2008 when she started to give millions of meals and vaccinations to children across India and Africa. She was awarded an OBE in 2014 and is currently a GovUK AI strategy advisor. And if you know the world of AI, Priya Lakhani is a name that will be on your radar. Done some incredible work around ethics, policy and integration AI, and a former part of the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, DCMS. That's quite a mouthful, isn't it, Priya? Welcome. Lovely to see you. How are you?
Thank you. Really well. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. And our next guest is Darren Coxon. So again, if you frequent LinkedIn and if you love AI, this guy must be on your radar. He does some of the most amazing live demos, up to speed with all the latest technologies when they drop. Darren Coxon is a co-founder and executive director of Compass Education. He is an educator for 26 years and he's worked in pretty much all sectors, from teacher level to head of department to SEND to principal in UK and overseas. And he advises hundreds and hundreds, probably in the thousands, of teachers and leaders through keynotes and sessions on leadership and strategic work with AI. So welcome, Darren. Lovely to have you here as well.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Alex. Thank you very much for having me.
Great. Well, let's kick off. Engage in the chat feed, people. Tell us what you think. Ask questions for these lovely guests, and we will get to that towards the end of the session. But to kick things off with, what in the world of AI has got you two excited this week? It's been a busy week, so who wants to go first?
Do you want to go first, Priya?
Go ahead. Your face was just classic. So
Yeah. All right. Well, as of the beginning of the week, I had a different answer. As of yesterday, it's totally changed. But that's AI for you. We're in the mad world of AI where it just changes every 5 minutes. So yesterday, there were 2 big releases, and they both melting my brain. One is OpenAI's new multimodal AI, which is just brilliant. I mean, it's just brilliant. It's honestly the first time that I've used an OpenAI tool. I'm not a big fan. I've never been a huge fan of ChatGPT. I've not used it much, to be honest, but they released this tool yesterday, the 4.0 model, where you can create images inside the chat. It's using ChatGPT, not using DALL-E. It's not using the image generator. So you can create text inside the images. So what did I do this morning? This morning I created a little picture book. I created the opening of a graphic novel, which simplifies Macbeth. I did some infographics. I did some PowerPoint slides with the text and the images. Took me an hour to do the whole thing. So it's really amazing. And it's well worth checking out. The second one is Google Gemini's 2.5 model, which was also released yesterday. They were literally released about an hour between. Typical AI.
Yeah.
And it is, in my opinion, the first time, and I might be exaggerating. I try not to exaggerate, but I felt almost a few sparks of AGI. I mean, what I mean is I asked it to do a task and it did something different to what I'd asked. Not because it misread, because when I actually queried it, said, I took your task and I read it and I actually did something better. Never seen that before. So I feel like with 2.5 Pro, the new Gemini model, it feels like it's got something extra. And with OpenAI, we can now combine images and text. So both of those have slightly melted my brain in the last 24 hours.
Amazing. What about you, Priya?
That's great. And I'm really glad, actually, that Darren talks about some of the product updates that, we're just following this journey. And obviously, even the technology companies, even the AI companies are following what the big tech companies are doing in this space. So it's great that we got that update. And mine's going to be really different, which is fantastic and complementary. So while there's all these product updates that you're seeing, what I'm really, really excited about was a piece that I reposted on LinkedIn by Jonathan Wilden. So Jonathan works with Lift Schools. I think he did work with AET beforehand as well. And he wrote a set of essays, Alex, that are. Fantastic that I've posted on LinkedIn. We can post a link on here as well. Teachers are going to really enjoy them. So 2 points and they're on AI. Okay. So it's very relevant to the question you asked. But he asks big questions about what that therefore means for education and assessment when it comes to the world of AI. Because I think when we ask about what are we excited about with AI this week, there's 2 things that we need to think about as when we're in education. We need to think about the tools. So as Darren talked about these updates in tools, okay, what's going on in that world and how could I leverage those to make my life easier, maybe have students using them? What do I need to think about in terms of all of the bad and the ugly aspects of these? How might that change my teaching in the classroom, what I'm marking? That's to do with the tools, right? How do I use them? How do I mitigate risk with those being available to everyone? But there is a second piece when you're in education that you must be thinking about alongside those when it comes to AI news. What do I need to be thinking about this week or with these updates when it comes to the world in which these students are going to leave formal education and be in that world where it's the automation, where Darren is saying, wow, I'm seeing little bits of AGI here, right? What is the meaning of that for me as a teacher? And how can I ensure that I'm best equipping students? So in this essay, I'm not going to do Jonathan justice here by talking about everything, but there are 2 pieces that I think that everybody should certainly take note of, as well as the entire sort of essay. It's not very long reading, by the way. It's really, really nice reading. So if you go for a coffee or something, you'll enjoy reading this along the same time. He talks about essentially this idea of deep thinking and deep learning, right? And so when we're using these chatbots and LLMs, and he goes through some really nice examples, what we want to ensure is that we're not creating a shortcut to deep knowledge and wisdom. And there are some ethical areas here that I know that both of you are really passionate about as well, which are to do with, if we're using these technologies and they make us really productive, they make teachers really productive, students really productive, well, what does that mean in terms of how we're developing our ability to think? And is there therefore in the future going to be this over-reliance on artificial intelligence? Because he then really eloquently puts how we don't want to be the observers in the future. We want to be the participants. And then the second piece, Alex, that I really liked was on oracy. And obviously there's been an oracy commission led by Jeff Barton.
Yep.
He talks about literacy and oracy being two sides of the same coin, and we need both for humans to thrive. And then he draws something really, I just think it's really profound the way he's done this. He poses the big question, and he references Daniel Kahneman's influential book, which is Thinking Fast and Slow. And he asks this question, right, which is quite a big one for our teachers, right? Has social media triggered a generational shift towards instinctive, unconscious and emotional thinking and away from more deliberative, logical and analytical thinking? And when you ask that question and you look outside of the classroom, this is really important. How are students behaving outside of the classroom day to day? What are their interactions like? I think that's a really important debate. So maybe a bonus sprint that Alex Moore is going to organise for us one day is a big debate answering that sort of question and thinking about, how are our behaviours evolving? How are we thinking nowadays? How are we making decisions? How are students doing that? Is AI helping us with this? Where could it help? Is AI exacerbating a problem here? And as teachers, who are the guardians during the day of these students, developing and nurturing the skill set where we want them to have opportunity and choice for the rest of their lives, is there something that we need to be doing within the classroom where it's time, because you never have any time in a classroom, right? That we can timetable in, where we can ensure that essentially we're developing and nurturing these students in the right way. So big answer to your first question, but I think it's really complementary to the things that Darren was talking about in terms of how to think about AI news and AI evolving, the two different aspects.
Yeah, and that chimed actually with something you posted recently, Darren, about speaking to our children about artificial intelligence in the classroom. And I take it that teachers are busy and classrooms are busy places and curriculums, as Jim Knight says, are obese. But there is always time to speak to children. It's so important that we have these conversations and get their understandings of how it's going to impact their futures, but also their current, like how they're using it and interacting with it. So I think that will be a theme that keeps re-emerging in the sprints. And you touched on oracy there, Priya, as well. And obviously that is key. It's part of the new curriculum review. We're waiting to see kind of how that lands and where that goes. But just that idea of speaking to children about artificial intelligence, it gets me excited. I think it's a really exciting thing. And I think if we're a teacher out there, an educator, just give it a go this week. Just have a chat with your class for 5 minutes during a tutor time or a pastoral session. And they've got some incredible views about AI that we perhaps don't see. And it's just really refreshing to kind of bring them in. I think you agree with that, Darren, won't you? From your perspective, it's let it speak.
Yeah, I mean, I literally the last 2 days I've been working in a school, and I spending quite a lot of time with student groups. So I met 4 different age groups because it's a split junior-senior school, and it was fascinating to listen to what they're saying, because it kind of goes from, this is actually really helping and I'm finding it really helpful and I'm using it, I'm understanding how to use it intelligently, to it's mediocre and I don't like it and I don't trust it and I can't trust it and it's going to take all the jobs and basically end up killing us all. This is kind of sort of like the continuum of kind of the commentary. But what was fascinating, just back to your point and what Priya was just mentioning there, this is really critical. This is possibly the most critical thing you need to be doing in your school right now. You have to be intentional about the way in which you talk about AI with your students. Because if you're not, what will happen is the general feeling of distrust will rub off on your students. And what will happen is they will start to absorb your lack of understanding and maybe your anxieties, even if you're not intentionally saying anything to them. Because what I noticed, those students and those classes where they've got teachers who are quite interested in this and they're talking not in a wholly positive way, but in a very intentional way, those kids had a very, very clear understanding of what it could and couldn't do. Some other parts of the school where I was just sensing a bit of kind of hesitation, the pupils were they were very unclear about how they should be thinking about AI. And as a result, actually, I think it puts them at a disadvantage. So I genuinely think as a school, you have to pin this down. You don't have to know the whole, the answer to every question, but you have to be building in, as you say, Alex, you have to be building in time where you're intentionally talking about AI and opening up and just ask them. I mean, literally all you need to do is sit down with your students tomorrow and say, how do you feel about this right now? How is it making you feel? Because you'll be amazed what they say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just in case it's helpful, Alex, I've created this deck of student debate questions, and some of them are very applicable to primary school students, some of them more so for secondary or sixth formers. But if anyone wants them, I've put the email in the chat. It's info@century.tech, and just put in the subject, can I have Priya's AI debate slides for students? And we'll send them to you. And Darren's right. Have a conversation with them about it. You were right. When you speak to students and involve them in the conversation, it's really interesting. And also, students who feel that teachers are savvy about this area are less likely to cheat because they know.
Very much interesting.
Yeah. Whereas if you don't talk about it as a teacher, the students who are being naughty, I'm sure there's none of them, right? I'm sure no one is naughty, but they're not going to try and hoodwink you because they know this teacher knows about ChatGPT, knows about Claude, knows about Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot. They might not know everything. You need to know everything. But actually having a conversation and showing you're aware is really interesting. Matt on the chat, if you just email info@century.tech, it's above in the chat, and we'll send you the slides, no problem, and you can set those. So, yeah, absolutely involving students in the conversation is really important. But also, who are we talking about this for? We're talking about this for ourselves, but we're also talking about this for future generations. So they ought to have a voice in the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Yeah, and absolutely. And we could probably do a whole episode on student voice, and maybe we need to. Maybe that needs to be a future episode and involve a few
students on. Get some students on.
Absolutely. But for today, we've got majority teachers joining in the audience from all over the world as well. So shout out to everyone that's joining from all over the place. It's great to have you here in one place. And one of the things that teachers love is hacks. And particularly, Darren, the sort of traffic that you get when you put stuff up is really flabbergasting. So you're kindly going to do what you call kind of an AI workflow integration where you use wrapper apps. So just to kind of get the terminology buffs here, wrapper apps aren't large language models specifically. They're AI apps that wrap around them and provide a service. Yeah. And you're going to join two together, I think, aren't you, to show how we can integrate two to offset workload, create amazing resources, and just impress our colleagues. So you're going to screen share and take it away, if that's all right.
Yeah. So I think it's commonly known as an app smash. So I'm going to use two tools. I'm going to use Gamma and I'm going to use Quizzes. Not because I don't, just so you know, before we start, I don't have any affiliate deals with any platform. I never do. I never have done. I never will. This is just free stuff. Okay. You can sign up for free. I've got an affiliate link for Gamma, and the only reason I give that away is because you get extra free AI. If you sign up with someone else's referral link, you'll get extra free AI, but that's it. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to take the same resource, which is just a fairly dull Word document, revision document on cell biology, and I'm going to turn it into a website, and I'm going to embed a quiz on that website into the website. So basically, they're both part of the same website. I'm just going to share my screen, and let me get started. I'm going to share the whole screen. So there we go. So I've started here with Gamma, and I will just show you. Can you see Gamma? And yeah, there we are. So this is the document. This is the source document I'm going to be using for both the website and the quiz. So it's going to be the same source document, cell structure and organization. Let's change that for UK spelling. Thank you very much. So it's just literally, I mean, the subject's not boring, biologists. I'm not saying the subject's boring, but the presentation is as dull as dishwater. So I'm just going to put that to one side for now. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm in gamma.app, and it is an AI presentation creator. That's it. It just uses AI to create really nice presentations, but you can also turn these into websites. So let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to import that document that I've just showed you. So I import a file, and I'm just going to now go in here, and it never takes me to the right place. This drives me nuts. It is here. There we are. There. So I have got this document. There it is. Cell structure and organization. I open it up and I import it into Gamma. And then it's going to say, what do you want? I'm going to start with the presentation because I want to show you both functions of Gamma. So I'm just going to click continue. And what it's going to do, nothing yet, just puts it into the platform. I'm choosing preserve here because I don't want AI to actually change too much of this text. I want to keep as much of this text as possible. It probably will still change it slightly. That's one of the criticisms I have of Gamma. The AI will slightly change it. It just won't change it much. I'm going to change that to UK English. Now, you can see images. It's going to either generate images or find images online. I'm actually going to ask it to find web images. The reason is 2 reasons. This is biology, doesn't do biology images very well. AI doesn't do very good biology images. The second reason, there's enough images in the world. We don't need AI to generate any more unless we absolutely want to do that. I was just talking about this OpenAI model. I think it's going to be a brilliant tool for very intentional image generation. But if I'm just wanting some pictures of cells, I'm just going to get it to search the internet. I don't need it to generate more images for me. And I'm just going to then click. So what it's now going to do is going to ask me to choose a theme. And I'm just going to choose, let's choose something natural. There we go. I'll choose this nice theme preview and click generate. What it will do is it's now going to take that source document, that cell biology source document, and it's simply just going to, first of all, turn it into a presentation. So there we go. That's what it's doing. And you'll see here some of the images. You can see it says Shutterstock because it's taken an image which is a rights protected image. I just choose edit. And I can just choose another one that isn't. There we go. Let's just choose that one. There we go. So you can see here what it's doing is it's just giving me a presentation on taking my document, my text, and it's turned it into a nice format. And then what I can do, I can just choose present if I want to in class, and it just creates a presentation. I can also download it as a PowerPoint if I really want to. But what I want to do now is I want to actually turn it into a website. So I'm actually going to now turn it into a website, and I can share that website with my students. So I just choose share here at the top, and then I'm going to convert it into a website, publish to site. It then has to go through the conversion process where it takes the presentation format, turns it into a website format, and now it's converted. Now I can actually upload it onto the internet. So that's what it's going to do. So it's like a 3 or 4 stage process. View the site. Okay, so now that URL is shareable with your students. You just share that link, and basically you've got a website, really attractive, which takes all the information and puts it into a nice, attractive format. But I'm also going to do something else, okay? Because I'm going to now go into this platform, quizzes.com. 1 Z followed by 2 Zs. Great tool. For me, it's probably one of the best wrappers. If you sign up to this on your own, just like sign up with a personal account, you won't have access to all of these AI features unless you pay for them. But if you sign up with a school account, and then I think it's 4 others, I think it's 5, maybe it's 3 now, I'm not sure. Certainly 3 to 5 people from your school all sign up with a school email account. It will automatically convert to this free for schools. And that means you get all the AI functions for free. Okay, so Gamma's free, and also Quizzes is free. And I'm going to basically take the same source document, so that same cell structure document, and an AI is going to turn that document into a quiz. With Gamma, turns the document into a presentation. With Quizzes, it turns the document into a quiz. So the AI is kind of the same in the background, but the wrapper is doing something different with that document. So I'm just going to click upload file here to convert any document into a quiz, upload the file, upload from the device, choose the same cell structure and organization document as before, and it will just take, it depends how busy it is, but it will usually take a few seconds just to upload. You can see it's uploading there. And it's, as always, when you do any of these sorts of things live, it always takes a little bit longer than you want. And you end up having to kind of talk amongst yourselves while it thinks about it. And it's still thinking about it. And it's taking much longer than it should. Come on, Quizzes, don't let me down now. No. Yeah, it always is. It's quite interesting. It's nearly always when I'm doing live demos. Let me just refresh the page. We'll try again. Maybe if the second time round it will help. So let's just click Create, Assessment. This will work better now. So generate with AI, upload from device, upload the thing. Hopefully it will work better now. It's really not going to do it, is it? It's really not going to do it. If it doesn't, I'll show you one in true Blue Peter fashion that I prepared earlier. No, for some reason it's decided that it's not happy today. So let me just choose another one that I've already done before. Okay, so there we go. And then I will just go into, where are we? Live quiz, view the quiz. There we go. Okay. If it had worked, you'd end up with this page. Okay. So if it had done what it's supposed to do, you end up with this page, which is essentially like a teacher dashboard, where you can see the teacher version of that document having been turned into a quiz. Now, there are two things that you can do with quizzes at this point. I can choose start now, and that does like the live version of the quiz. So it goes up on your board and the kids can answer questions and blah, blah, blah. Not going to do that. I'm actually going to embed the quiz into my Gamma deck. So I'm choosing these 3 dots. You can see where it says worksheet here. I choose these 3 dots here, and I just choose embed. And then I just copy this link here. Just click the copy here, and I've copied the embed link onto my clipboard. So I now go back into my Gamma deck. And what I'm going to do at the bottom, I'm just going to choose plus, add a blank card. And over here on the right, you can see lots of features. One of them is called embed apps and web pages. You can just see there on the right-hand side. I click on there and I choose the first one of those things, just embed a web page. Okay, tap on that. And I just paste that embed code in. Now, I can change this image if I want to. I can change the text here if I want to. I'm not going to bother because just for the interest of speed, because it was a little bit slower than I was hoping because it let me down. Click publish. Now, basically, when I go into my website, again, there's my website. At the bottom of my website is the link to the quiz. Tap on it. And then I tap go, and it takes me into the quiz. Okay, and I won't do the quiz. That's incredibly boring. And that's how the quiz looks, and you choose the answers, etc., etc. There we go. That's how it would just kind of smash those apps together. 5 minutes, job done.
Thanks, Darren. And just teachers joining this, we get covered all the time, right? You're walking down the corridor and someone says, Alex, you need to go and take a year 8 physics lesson on forces now. And that, what Darren has just shown you, I've done in 90 seconds, not with the quiz feature, but the Gamma part, and created a resource. So when I walk into the classroom, I genuinely look like I know what I'm talking about, even when I don't. So that's one really good use of it. Another use is for ECTs, new teachers, ITTs who are quite new and overburdened. You know, all the pressure on teachers at the moment in the workforce. These apps are really good to kind of wrap around each other and use to offset teacher workload. So thanks for sharing that. And I appreciate we've had a couple of issues with the sound guys since the start. We're working on it. Like I said, today's the pilot edition. So by next week, we'll be super smooth when we have Daisy and Jim in. But thank you for bearing with us. And I believe that if you refresh, it will give you a clearer clarity of picture and sound. So we're just going to do
one quick question Simon just raised in the chat. About does it give feedback? So the nice thing about quizzes is you get a teacher dashboard. So the pupil gets feedback at the end, but also there's a dashboard with all of the pupils and all of their marks. So whether you do it live or whether you do it asynchronously, whether they're doing it as part of this website, it doesn't matter because you, as the teacher, you still get the data, you still get the feedback.
Amazing. And we're actually got John from Quizzes, the CEO, on next week. So he's going to do a live demo next week.
Great. I like John. He's a good guy. He's a really good guy.
Tune back in for that one. So we're going to do one more 5-minute question episode. Then we're going to jump over to John from Brain Freeze for another demo because I think teachers love the demos because it's just hands-on AI. And I'm going to go over to you, Priya, because of your role kind of in leadership of AI and governance and whatnot, you get to move in some pretty influential circles. And I know recently you interviewed Elon Musk and Richie Sunak. I won't ask you about that now, but I know you work with some quite high stakes people. So you recently went to the AI Action Summit, where governance, inclusivity, and the future work were on the agenda. As a workforce, we teachers carry a great burden because we're preparing these students for the future, as we spoke about at the start of this episode. So what were your main takeaways that you think should be on teachers' radars from that summit?
Yeah, look, I mean, I hosted the conversation, didn't quite interview them with Elon and Rishi, but in the AI Summit. So obviously that was in France just recently. Look, very, very quickly, there wasn't too much new when it came to how does it matter to you? There were lots of discussions on the skills that we need in the future workforce and how countries are looking at developing those skills, looking at their curriculum in schools, but also looking at how to upskill in terms of lifelong learners, current people in the workforce, because of this huge shift in displacement, which we're likely to see. And by the way, look, I think there's going to be mega changes in the workforce. If I hide that from you, it's remiss of me to do so. Because when you're building AI tools, so Darren, what you just showed there, it was brilliant. I mean, that we do that in a sense, and it's got the content there, but we're using machine learning underneath, not just to generate images and text, but what do you give a child when there's a gap in knowledge? So if Alex, you're walking down the corridor and you suddenly have to take a physics lesson, what do you know about those kids? Like, tell me. Nothing, because you haven't taught them before in that particular. So the use of generative AI, yes, but also non-generative AI on data. So, and then there's a huge amount in the workforce and discussions going on about how do we use AI to essentially be one of the solutions to the problem that AI overall might create. So look, in that summit, just in summary, there were lots of discussions. I think if you're interested in this, watch some of the online recorded sessions at World Economic Forum in Davos, because actually they have a Future of Skills in Education alliance. And those discussions I thought were probably more valuable for you. They also created the Future of Jobs Report 2025. I was on the Education Alliance at WEF, where I know the amount of work that they do to go into that. At the summit in France, the key things were, which you'll just maybe find entertaining, okay, is that what were we expecting? We were expecting all of the CEOs of the biggest tech companies in the world to come in, chest puffed up, Alex, billionaires and trillionaires owning this space that's going to disrupt the entire world, where none of you are even going to get a foot in. It's all going to happen to you, and we're the innovators. And about 2 weeks before that summit, DeepSeek in China came out, and essentially chest was in, shoulders were rounded, everyone was nervous, because the world has been rocked, because all of the assumptions that everybody had on these big apps. And I think Jamil's point, he said kids will want to build their own AI models, not use someone else's. You are on point, right? Because actually it's wide open, right? We also know that the most significant piece that wasn't talked about so much in the media, okay, but it's really important, is the infrastructure and ecosystem, the really expensive infrastructure that's required to build these AI models, the training data, run the training data, and then do inference. China managed to do without the most sophisticated chips, right? And there are all sorts of geopolitics that we could go into, but I know Alex will tell me off because we're not supposed to talk about that here. This is not for that. But if you look into it, it's like this is the most exciting area, I think, of our time, where there's going to be disruption, but there's a power play and there's an AI arms race. So from that AI Action Summit, Alex, the most important thing for teachers and educators is, look, there's an AI arms race between the tech companies, but also geopolitically between the countries. If you want to know more about that, I'd be happy to have a session on that another time, because it's my area. I love talking about it. The thing that you need to understand is that when you're looking for regulation, it affects regulation, okay? Because countries want to be innovative and have all the scale-up tech companies operating in their country. And so what happens is those that regulate fast and maybe in some circumstances over-regulate, you're expecting that as teachers, aren't you? Because you're saying, but we need to keep our children safe. But we need safety, because you're so used to that. That's your first mindset walking into a school, is safeguarding, safety, right? It's the number one principle that every single one of you is trained on. But when it comes to AI, there's a balance, because you don't want to be a country that overregulates, because then no startups and scale-ups will start up in your country. So watching geopolitically what's happening in this AI arms race is interesting for you, because that will then, you're from lots of different countries, I think, in the world, right? How your country then regulates AI for the safety of children, young people, citizens, you, everybody else, is very, very much linked to the AI arms race. That is really what came out of the summit, right? Trump was like, drill, baby, drill, right? We're going to be the AI leader. And Macron said, plug, baby, plug, because Macron and France have a real advantage when it comes to sustainability. So those were the key aspects from the Action Summit, not necessarily relevant to the future of skills. But if you're interested, I'd watch the stuff from the World Economic Forum in January in Davos.
Fascinating. And those insights as teachers are just so hard to come by. So thank you for sharing those, because we don't often get as teachers to come to those sort of events. So it's really useful to get your insights. Thank you. We're going to segue to another demo now. I just want to kind of set this up. We've been talking a lot about reducing teacher workload. Going to introduce you to a new player in the market that you may know. Brain Freeze were at BET this year. Many of you may have demoed their platforms. We're going to bring the CEO, John, in to do a quick demo on his platform. And this guy's a man after my own heart. He does lots of work in classrooms and schools around the world trying to improve technology for people's lives. He's the CEO of Araya, an enterprise AI full stack platform. Prior to this, he founded and built AirWatch to be a global leader in enterprise mobility management with over 20,000 customers and a 250 million in recurring revenue. So John, lovely to have you here. You're going to show our teachers in the audience and our educators and our industry people from around the world your amazing platform. Over to you.
Okay, so I've been given 5 minutes to give you the rapid fire demo, and I'll tell a little bit more about my background at the end. But what we've created is essentially a platform to help you roll out AI in a safe way to all of your students and teachers and administrators and externally to parents. And the way that we do that is we help you create these assistants, which are built on top of the models. These assistants have all of the guardrails of privacy and security put in place, but more importantly, they link to all your data. So as opposed to just an independent wrapper app around an LLM, one thing that we can also do is actually go link into all your different data, your different LMSs, your different types of Google Drives, OneDrives, etc. And in this case, we just have an assistant that looks for an IEP for an individual student, and it's pulling data from all the other stuff, and then maybe it puts together an action plan. So as students move from grade to grade, teacher to teacher, it's often really important to carry that knowledge through. Sometimes it's very difficult to do. And one of the beautiful things that you can do with AI is really take things and all the benefits that were built in the world of the Khan Academies and all these great mobile apps, and now take it down to an individual student level. So we're building on top of all of this data that we can link to in your current existing infrastructure. And then we're allowing teachers to be able to create these assistants or administrators to create these assistants. You can also go back and look at every single thing that you've ever built. So in the example before with quizzes, we're certainly not quizzes. They go very deep in their specialty use cases. But if you built lessons plan, rubrics, individual plans, etc., you can go back through that historically. You can assign that out to students. You can have students take the homework, come back, report on it, and do those types of things. You can also create your own assistants. So what we've essentially done is created this really nice prompting studio where you don't have to know the intricacies of creating a prompt. You don't have to know how to put guardrails. You don't have to know how to put privacy around that. In this example, we've created an outward-facing chatbot. This chatbot is for schools to let parents ask questions. So, we found teachers and administrators were answering questions about the uniforms, about breaks, about after school activities. So a simple chatbot tied to all that internal information. In this case, it has a link to the exact uniform to go purchase, how to get it embroidered, etc. The way that we do all this in the back end, which you don't have to really spend any time in, except if you're a district or administrator and you really want to spend time, is this is how we do the magic of connecting to all your different data sources, whether it's Google or Microsoft or on Dropbox or Box. We have all the different hundreds of models fully integrated. So you don't have to go and do the heavy lifting of picking a model and worrying about the upgrade. You could literally take the upgrades that Darren discussed earlier from Google or OpenAI that came out yesterday. You can grab those models. You can put in all kinds of DLP. So if it is an outward-facing chatbot, you make sure not to put student information, not to put sensitive information. You can make sure that all the categories around filtering for harassment, for not appropriate for school type activities, all those thresholds are set very low, so none of that stuff leaks through. And all these are built on different guardrails that we've incorporated into the platform. We also incorporate security so that as your kids get smarter, they're going to want to try and, of course, hack these different types of systems, try and hack into your own LMSs with clever prompts, and actually find different ways to get report cards or information on other students. So all that is there. We have the full audit log of everything that's ever happened.
Amazing. Thank you so much, John, for giving up your time, and from Miami as well, which I believe is Colorado today you're joining us from. So yeah. And we will put some stuff in the chat at the end about this as well. So thank you so much. Brain Freeze are going to be back. They're sponsoring 2 more episodes, so we'll see them in future episodes. Back to the main chat so we can welcome Priya and Darren back. And we're going to dive into leadership now. So if you're listening to this today, from a school leader, academy trust leader, IB leader, wherever you're joining us from the world, these two have got extensive experience in how AI is being received by leaders. And I want to just spend a moment diving into that a little bit. So this is open to either of you, this question. You've got both of extensive experience in leadership around AI and strategic overview. What advice do you have for leaders about not ignoring this new technology, but embracing it?
Honestly, sorry, Darren, should I just say one thing? You can't afford not to try. Yeah. Well, I'm just going to say that you just can't afford not to try the technology, see how it might work for you, become familiar with what students have access to for free, right, in many cases. So, you know, when we're leading and we're trying to figure out what that formal strategy is, what that AI policy might be like, one of the nicest sort of learnings that I've had actually is you shouldn't have an AI strategy. You have to have a teaching and learning strategy. But the point is the AI strategy feeds into that. It's just a tool. It's a technology that can enable you. And so when you're leading and you're coming up with these ideas as to what your goals are that you want to achieve and the problems that you want to solve, and so many of you in schools will have so many problems that you need to solve, firefighting every day, right? It's how can you use these tools and technologies to help you be more productive, right? What can you automate? What can you augment where it's enabling you? What could you use AI? Where could you use AI to help predict, say, for example, forecasting demand in terms of the role in the future? Where could you use AI to help you personalize, whether that's personalizing lesson plans and lessons or, you know, I don't know, marketing campaigns for your school, particularly if it's competitive, you're in the independent sector, for example. So this can really enable you. And, you know, if we do as you've always done, you get what you've always got. So while every other industry is out there leveraging these tools, why not in education? But the other point is, as you're leading in this area, and that second point that I made earlier, you know, what's the world that these students are going to be facing when they leave you, when they leave formal education? That is a world where there'll be a lot of automation, a lot of augmentation. So understanding the tools by getting a bit messy with it. That's the only piece of advice I can give you is you can look at the theory, right? But the point is, if you don't play with it, you're not going to be able to understand exactly how transformative these things can be. And don't be afraid of it. Most people are afraid, or I don't know how to prompt that. And I couldn't do what Darren just did there with merging one. You don't need to. You're not going to break it and it's not going to break you. Just don't put any personal data in these tools, right? Because if you haven't yet learned how to use the right tools and stop that from happening, just play with it. But in order to lead in this area, well, this is where the world is going. The train has left the station. It's not going back in the box. You have to become familiar with this. And that's the only reason I'm saying it like that is I'm sure some of you are very familiar with all of these tools, but there are going to be teachers who are your colleagues who are not. And so sort of holding their hands through it and showing them how to use these tools is really important. Like, you know, at Century, we embed our tools at Century more than actually, you know, we spend more time. We have so many staff doing that rather than even those that build those tools, because actually the software exists. It's the embedding and the use of them to create those opportunities that is often the challenge, because it's a change management issue. So as a leader, can you afford to not be embracing these tools is a question that I would ask you.
Here. I'll just follow exactly. Just really quickly, the big, just picking up one thing that Priya said about data, not putting your data in. There's quite a few things coming in the chat about this, and there's a little bit of, I wouldn't say misinformation, but it's quite important to understand how this stuff works. Someone just asked, Swati just asked, are there settings to turn off the data? So ChatGPT settings, data, improve the model for everyone, turn it off. ChatGPT's slightly passive-aggressive way of saying, well, if you turn it off, you're not helping people. Don't help people, turn it off. Claude doesn't use it. Gemini will, unless you're inside. The easiest way to know about this stuff is if you pay generally Office 365, Gemini for Workspace, it doesn't use your data to train the model because you're paying for that feature for it not. If you use the open-facing, just your own Gmail account, Gemini, it will. You can't turn that off, but you can in OpenAI. So if you're only going to use ChatGPT, settings, data controls, turn that off, and you're safe in terms of it not being used to train the model. But I completely agree with Priya. Don't start uploading sensitive information because you might have an ICO come knocking on your door, which is actually happening at the moment in a school that I'm currently working with. They did some bit silly things, and now ICO have come to investigate. So don't do that because it's not a very good idea. So in terms of leaders,
right? Just like with anything, Darren, right? Just like with anything, Darren, right? When you were a leader at a school, you would look at the terms and conditions, right? And you would
terms of service, seriously,
right? Yeah.
So what I would suggest you do, someone mentioned Notebook LM, Google Notebook LM, notebooklm.google.com. Brilliant tool. You literally can link all of the terms of service into one notebook, and you can just say, what's the terms of service for OpenAI? What's the age that I can use ChatGPT? Just ask it and it will tell you. So that's the easiest way to do it. Just literally one notebook on all. That's what I have. I have one notebook on all of the terms of service for all of the AI models. I just ask it. When I'm not sure, I just ask it. So in terms of leadership, Priya's absolutely right. 100%. Play with the tools, learn, just have fun with them. Literally, it's so low stakes still at the moment. Just literally don't add anything confidential. Just play with them. You'll be perfectly safe. Chat to them like you're chatting to an expert assistant. That's what I always say. The most important thing to know about all of this is if you're listening to this and you're a school principal, you don't have to be an expert, but you do have to recognize the fundamentally disruptive potential of this technology, and this will change education, and you have to understand what that means for you personally, for what it means for teaching, for learning, for assessment, both formative and summative, for future of education, future of skills. You have to start understanding what that means. Because if you are someone who's ambivalent about it, who's on the fence, who's dismissive about it, that is not a good place to be. If you're a teacher and you're listening to this, or a lead, and you've got a principal who's ambivalent and who's just dismissive about it, quite frankly, I'd be looking for another school. I honestly would, because this is going to have such a major impact on the education system of our young children and young people, that unless you're working with people who genuinely understand that this has the disruptive potential of these technologies, then quite frankly, you're going to get yourself into hot water. Because what tends to happen is, as you know, what I mentioned before, what we're tending to see is the schools where there's just this kind of ambivalent attitude comes down on the pupils. They become unsure. The teachers are unsure. Everybody's unsure. And before you know it, people are making mistakes and they're doing silly things. And and then the message to parents is unclear, and WhatsApp groups start, the Bush Telegraph. And before you know it, it's all just a big mess. The principal has to buy into it. Doesn't have to be an expert. Doesn't have to even agree with it. You don't have to. I mean, there's parts of AI that I absolutely detest. There's some character bots and my AI inside of Snapchat. I always think this stuff's I'm very suspicious of a lot of this stuff. So I'm not a complete evangelist, but I do recognize the potential of it. And then it's things like, how do you communicate how urgent this is to your team? So it's what John Cotter calls, how do you communicate a sense of urgency? I would urge every single leader to read his Leading Change book. It is the single most important book, in my opinion, for school leadership. Nothing to do with school, but right now, read Leading Change. It's a brilliant book. Who are the people who are going to lead this? Creating a working party? Who is that going to be? What are they going to be doing? If you just create a working party and let's see how we integrate AI in our school, that means nothing. I mean, it's so vague. I would suggest working towards something. What I did, I was leading a school in Tunisia. I was the head of a school in Tunisia when ChatGPT first came out. We worked as a school towards collapsing the curriculum for a week, and we did what we called AI Week. It's an original name, but it worked. And so actually the working party was the planning group for this particular collapsed curriculum week. So it's policies. You've got to have some sort of AI policy, or as Priya said, maybe you put it into your teaching and learning policy or academic honesty policy, doesn't matter. You've got to have some position as a school to show how you're going to be dealing with this. The last one is around governance. The training as well, obviously. I mean, that goes without saying. If you can't have the internal capacity to train, do get some online training. Basically, that's what I do. And there are videos on YouTube. There's plenty of stuff out there to learn the basics. And then the governance aspect's really critical, because the UK government will be looking through Ofsted and through, the various other regulatory bodies, will be looking to see how well schools manage it. They expect to see innovation, by the way. I spoke to the lead inspector for the North of England quite recently at a conference. First thing he said, how are schools innovating with AI right now? He didn't say, how are schools controlling it? He said, how are schools innovating with it? Ofsted, the DFE want to see innovation, but they want to see doing it safely. So I think, there are just a few points there that particularly school leaders need to be mindful of.
Yeah, and I think that's a clear message, and I agree with you. I think we need to embrace this, not bury it or stop it, this new technology. So we're coming towards the end of the session. I just want to bring in combine 3 questions really that touch on all of your expertise that I think the audience will find really useful. First of all, Priya, you recently went on record saying when harm comes along, we have no way of maintaining trust. So I almost want to hold that for a minute and combine it with something else that I heard you and Rose Luckin speak about recently, which is kind of a basketball quote. And as an XP teacher, this really speaks to me. It sort of says, be quick, but don't worry your way to success. And Rose has this old idea of, around her keynotes, thinking fast, acting more slowly and more cautiously. So when we start to think about all the things we've spoken about today, just speaking to those 2 quotes, talk us through what you mean by when harm comes along, we have no way of maintaining trust.
Okay, so firstly, that one was, I was quoting someone else in a panel at the AI Action Summit. So it was a summit about data, but what she was talking about is really interesting, and this is why it's relevant. She was actually talking about public data sets, right? So like, let's say the NHS data set. Wow, that's all of our health data, for example, or think about education data. And she was talking about data. And when we start using this sort of data, it's very easy for people to say using data. I mean, we have to be secure about as to how we're using people's data. And even as a school, whose data is it? Isn't it the students' data? Where is it going? You're retraining other models potentially with that, depending on the terms and conditions, right? Once public data has been breached, there's been a breach in terms of the trust in public data. And this, in education, it's very, very relevant to you, right? Then how does that affect trust, right? And actually, I'm writing about this at the moment. And it's how trust is affected when there is a breach in terms of data. And the problem for schools and teachers, and this is where the fear comes from, right, is, okay, I want to use these tools. I've put in the chat, by the way, a bunch of things that total beginners can start off with. And you can take those and copy them and give them to colleagues who haven't played with this stuff, even if you have, right? But how can I become confident using these tools? Because I know if I make one mistake and the parent body, the governing body gets upset about that, quite rightly, then that harms my reputation. And right now, because of these chatbots being everywhere, people having access to them, students having access to them too, parents having access, guardians having access, people are misusing them. Let's make no mistake. If you're putting student records into there to summarize your parent-teacher meeting summaries, you're probably that you shouldn't be doing that, right? And unless you know that is not going out onto some further server. And I have problems with this because I know how this stuff is architected. We have about 30 odd tech people and engineers, and things always sit in a server somewhere. And so, where is the server? Is it in the States? Is it in China? What are you doing, right? Is it in the UK and Ireland? Is it GDPR compliant? You want to be very, very careful. It goes beyond the terms of service of a business, because that might look fine for you, but they might be, based on American principles and regulation, not UK if you're in the UK. So once you breach that, then how do you rebuild trust? Rebuilding trust is really hard. Okay. Usually when we start off a relationship, we have that trust. As a school, you have that duty of care. You have that trust from the parent guardian for that student who's usually vulnerable. They're young. So the problem is that then how do you repair that? So that quote was really from someone from the AI Summit who was talking about that, but it's very, very relevant as to being careful. And then, Alex, did you want me to go on to John Wooden's quote, the basketball coach?
Yeah, just quickly, in 60 seconds, if you can do it in 60 seconds.
Sure. Be quick, but don't hurry on your way to success. What he basically is talking about is being quick, right? In basketball, making, you want to be the shooter, you want to gain the points, right? But speed is sort of rushing towards getting that point, right, in basketball. But then what he really talks about is don't compromise your speed when it comes to kind of accuracy, right, when it comes to precision. So we need to refine as we're going along. So, this whole idea of sort of failing fast that people love to talk about in technology, right? Actually, you have to be a bit more thoughtful about that. So anyway, it's a fantastic, I love football and basketball and sports quotes, because I think that when it comes to leadership, Alex, it's your background, right? That's why actually we should invest in PE, by the way. Just a quick plug for PE, drama, music.
The creative subject. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to add. No, Alex, sorry, this has got to go on. Just 1 second. This is really important, right? All of you teachers, I know you're passionate about this. You've got to keep banging the drum. When the World Economic Forum is doing big sessions on, we need creativity. We need you to be a team worker. You need to do leadership. You need to be proactive. what are the core subjects in school where you learn how to listen to other people, playing in an orchestra, singing in a choir, right? Being on a team, in a football team, right? Leadership. Yeah. All of those really hard to teach skills are in those subjects that have actually been dumbed down and aren't prioritised in schools. And I think that is absolutely abominable. And that's why the curriculum review, if in autumn they can make the statement that we should not be dumbing down those subjects, that will be a success. Sorry, I get really passionate about that because, and that's something like we can't use AI to do that.
I call it the 3 M's: movement, music, and meditation.
Very cool. And Darren, you're coming to join us for the one-day conference in York, so people can get more of Darren Coxon, can't they, up in York on the 27th?
Can't get enough. Just down the road from me.
A keynote and some workshops. So we'll chuck a link of that into the chat feed. And we've run out of time. Just so you know, audience, we only got through 50% of our script today. Guess how passionate these guys are about talking about AI. And we'll have to arrange another get-together and do this again. But just to kind of bring things together, thank you to the two of you and to John from Brain Freeze for coming on today. And Alex Gray's working behind the scenes on production. So it was the pilot today and we've had a few glitches, but on the whole, it's been pretty smooth, I think. I hope. What we're going to do with this is you're going to be able to access this in about 48 hours time. We're going to edit it down and it's going to live on the STEM learning community as a legacy document that you can go back, rewind, watch again and learn from. So that'll be super useful. Next week, we are back again just before the Easter holidays in the UK with Daisy Christodoulou and Lord Jim Knight, who pretty much disagree on everything. And we're going to be speaking about assessment, which should be fascinating. So please join us. We've also been speaking to all of the exam boards. We've got some interesting debates about the future of exams and on-screen assessment. Last thing is we're looking for AI innovators as teachers. So if you are one of those, there's going to be a link going in the feed. Let us know. We've already got some fantastic people out there. Share your practices and your colleagues. And Brain Freeze, 90% off. Why would you not go for that? That's an incredible deal. I'm going to tap into that as soon as I get off this episode. So thank you for joining us, guys. Really appreciate you being here with us. That's a wrap. We're done for this session. Can't wait to see you next time. And just a massive thank you to all of our audiences from wherever you're joining us. Go safely. Darren, Priya, thank you. It's been great. Enjoyed your time.
Thank you.
See you
Thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye.